All right, what's going on, guys? It is your boy TKD1HD here, and I have with me my good friend Starks. Starks, how you doing today?
I'm well. I'm well.
Well, I don't know if we're
Not
well,
well.
but
Not well anymore.
so
Um.
so let me add context to the video, right? So this is not a traditional episode of Road to Part 2. This is not even going to be labeled Road to Part 2, right? But we were gathering news for Outbreak Day, which you will hear that episode next week, going over Outbreak Day and stuff like that. But to kind of as we were sifting through all of the impressions that we were getting and all the different articles that were coming out about the people that went to the Last of Us Part 2 media event on Monday, Tuesday, that happened simultaneously during the State of Play. The community right now is reacting to some interesting news given to us by UK Gamer News, right?
You're right.
And I do not have the link in front of me, unfortunately.
Can
do. You link that in the chat? Or if you want to just read off the direct quotes, and
I'll send it to you in the chat, but I will indeed link it to you.
I also have dual.
Just like that.
I also have. Okay, so we also have dual shockers as well. So like this news is coming out. People are publishing it right now.
So
it looks like it isn't up by IGN yet, but Dual Shockers is up. But I'm gonna just let Starks take the floor, and you can go on with the whole.
So
proceedings.
the link will be for you to read on your own, but
I think you
under
cut
US
off.
Game.
I think you
Pardon?
cut off. I think you cut off. I'm sorry, but the link will be in the description. Is what he said.
Yeah. That's
Okay,
what
cool.
I said. Sorry, I didn't cut off. Am I okay now?
Right now, you seem to be good. If you do cut off in the future, I'll just stop you and say what you said. But
All
go
right,
ahead.
cool. So the headline says The Last of Us Part 2 won't have multiplayer after all. This is an article by Kathy McCarthy or whatever. Featured, she's an editor for this website. So she says, sorry, Factions fans, The Last of Us Part 2 will not have multiplayer. It turns out that The Last of Us Part 2 actually won't have a multiplayer mode, contrary to reports last year saying otherwise. At an event earlier this week, Naughty Dog lead game designer Emilia Schultz confirmed the lack of multiplayer in an interview with US Gamer. In a follow-up after the event, Sony reconfirmed the news. And I quote, "We're focusing on a single-player experience, so we're just making a single-player game for this," Schultz said during the event when asked about what sort of form the previous confirmed multiplayer mode would take. Correct, she says. It is a single-player game. A Sony representative subsequently clarified over email. So previously at E3 2018, co-directors Kurt Marganow and Anthony Newman confirmed to outlets such as Polygon and GameSpot that The Last of Us's multiplayer mode would be making a comeback. For a long time, it was a trend for traditionally single-player games to get shoehorned in multiplayer mode. Naughty Dog's The Last of Us was among them, but surprisingly, its Factions multiplayer mode was pretty robust and inspired. It even let you link your Facebook account so that the quote-unquote survivors in your group would have your friends' names and likenesses. It was a little sad to see its servers shutter earlier this September on PlayStation 3. Now we know the same server-ending fate won't befall The Last of Us Part 2 because there will be no servers to say goodbye to, which is a big ouch. The ending of the article says, we also talked to Schultz in depth about the biggest gameplay changes of the sequel, such as overhauling how AI works for companions and enemies. We learned that performance-wise, Naughty Dog is targeting base PlayStation 4s rather than PlayStation 4 Pro, so hopefully it can avoid some of the issues plaguing other AAA releases on base and premium consoles. The Last of Us Part 2 releases on PlayStation 4 on February 21st, 2020. So Kevin, sir, your reaction to that?
I'm not okay with this at all.
Yeah, I'm torn apart. And the reason I'm torn.
May
I? Yeah.
I'm gonna say one thing, right? The article points out that yes, during the time of Last of Us 1 when that came out, right? We are talking 2011, 2010, 2009 even if we go back a little bit further than that. I understand that the trend of gaming at that point was to have quote-unquote shoehorn multiplayers. I get it. We had a ton of not that great multiplayers during that era, right? Where they would want to make their vision and want to make their game, first and foremost, which was of course the story, a more one player type of format. I get that, right? And then they would attach on the multiplayer to kind of hopefully have their game have a longevity type of aspect to it, and have people not be so quick to trade it in. You know what I'm saying? I get it, right? Factions was not that, though. Factions wasn't that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, Factions is a lot more in depth. And yes, it only has like 3 or 4 modes, and yeah, it's only 8 players out of that, and make sure weapons. But the actual game, right, was not a shoehorn type of multiplayer. I do not categorize it as that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It is so upsetting, dog.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
As a person who has grown with video games, in particular The Last of Us and its multiplayer, this article rips me apart a bit. Like, I'm not totally upset though, because I'm still hopeful. I tagged a couple people on Twitter, including you. One person replied, well, it's not absolute, right? And which Naughty Dog still has to confirm. So we'll see how it turns out. I mean, based off of the article though, like it's weird because it mentions how Kurt Marganow and Anthony Newman confirmed that The Last of Us multiplayer would be making a comeback, as well as the fact that we've seen multiple positions for multiplayer designer and programmer for the multiplayer side on The Last of Us Part 2. So I don't 110% believe this article, although it does seem like it has some substance to it based off of what Amelia Schwartz said. Now, going back to the previous game, The Last of Us, and I know this is a bit different, but I always make this comparison. Neil Druckmann, as well as several other developers at Naughty Dog, said you will never play as Ellie in the first game. And then it turns out we did. And I understand that that was supposed to be like a very big surprise and all, but maybe they're doing the same thing with this, where multiplayer has already been developed or is in the process of being developed and is going to include Battle Royale. It's going to include all sorts of different game modes, and it's going to be one of the best multiplayer game modes out there. Do I think that's true? Possibly. But based off of this article, I'm kind of conflicted with this article is what I'm trying to say, because it just, to me, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense, right? Because
no,
we have been reading reports for literally months now, right, of them hiring people from multiplayer sides of the industry and bring them into Naughty Dog, right? Like, we had job listings for multiplayer. I'm sure you can go right now to jobs.naughtydog.com and find listings for multiplayer programmers that they are looking for. Yeah. I would be shocked, right, if that whole time, right, if that whole entire time they're hiring these multiplayer designers and multiplayer programmers for a new IP, for what is something beyond Part 2. Right. And if that's true, right, then I don't know what to tell everyone here. But like, the writing was so clear that, yeah, number one, from the mouths of Naughty Dog, confirmed, yeah, we are having faction mode in Part 2. It's all good. Don't worry about it, boys. It's making a comeback. Cool, right? We got that confirmed pretty early on. Like, pretty early. Mm-hmm. I think it was when they officially unveiled Part 2 at PSX 2016, I believe, is when they were like, hey, by the way, factions mode is coming back and making a return. You know what I'm saying? But that confirmation, right? Like, officially from the mouths of Naughty Dog, and then having them continue to hire multiplayer designers and multiplayer animation work and multiplayer programmers and network people that were, people that know how to code the net
right,
code
yeah,
of
programmers,
yeah,
server
like,
stabilizer people. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
It doesn't add up. Yeah, it does not make sense.
And the fact that Last of Us's community, I want to say that The Last of Us, not based off of PlayStation 3 servers anymore, because those are shut down, but I'm very strong in saying this, but if we were to compare Uncharted 4's multiplayer population to The Last of Us Remastered, I think The Last of Us player pool is significantly more larger than Uncharted 4.
100%.
Because I can only find game modes in Uncharted 4 like on TDM and Bounty Hunter, and it has like 6 game modes, right? Meanwhile, The Last of Us only has 3, and I never failed to find a match on The Last of Us.
To this day, dead ass, you can go on Factions Remastered anytime and get a game within 20 seconds. Facts.
Absolutely.
Facts. Those servers are still packed. That's
Yeah.
some big facts. And I will say, I have said this multiple times, right? Now, I may have a biased opinion, right? I played Uncharted 4's multiplayer. I liked it fine. I liked it. It was fun, right?
Mhm.
I haven't played Shadowfall multiplayer from Killzone. Haven't played that, admittedly, right?
Right.
But during the PS4 era of PS4 exclusives, right? The best multiplayer, in my opinion, is still Factions.
Right.
It's still
yeah.
Factions. I don't know of a better exclusive PlayStation multiplayer, mode or game that that I was I'm so
Competes with the
thank
level
you.
of
Thank
awesomeness
you.
that The
Yeah.
Last of Us is. Yeah,
Sorry,
I absolutely agree.
I I I just saw black for a second there. I fucking blacked out. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened.
The news is affecting you, man.
Dude,
Or the speculation.
I don't know if I can. You know what? I'm about to just crawl into bed. Quite honestly.
Okay, so let's say to I guess wrap up. Let's say The Last of Us won't in fact include multiplayer. Would you be less inclined or excited to experience the game now that it doesn't have multiplayer? Because I'm gonna admit to you, as much as I really want to see the part 2 story, The Last of Us, the first game, and I'm amongst the very few who say this, it wasn't special for me. I watched a YouTuber play it before, and then I was like, you know what, I want to get this game because the multiplayer really intrigued me as well as the story, but more so the multiplayer because of how competitive and realistic and tactical and very stealthy it was. And I played the first game and it was cool and all, and I'm really excited for part two's story, but I feel like I'd be very empty without a multiplayer. There's content creators out there who love the multiplayer. The community right now on Outbreak Day feels a sense of betrayal from Naughty Dog. And so again, this is not confirmed by Naughty Dog, but based off of the fact that a Sony rep said or confirmed the detail that it wouldn't have multiplayer. Also, I want to highlight before we wrap up, I want to highlight the fact that Amelia, said confirmed the lack of multiplayer. So I don't think that it's necessarily suggests that it won't have multiplayer, but that it won't have a ton of content for it, which to me wouldn't make sense because, again, based off of the popularity of the first game and based off of the mess that Uncharted 4 was, you would think that they would want to have that fan service by giving us a great multiplayer with good gameplay, because I know we're going to get, and then have like a year to 2 years worth of content scheduled, almost like what they did for the roadmap in Uncharted 4. So I'm conflicted and confused. Like I don't understand why they.
I don't know.
I don't want to get emotional here, but I don't understand.
Yo, we might be crying in this episode, bro. No cap. All right, look. Here's what I'm gonna say. Right, number one. Okay. You asked me if this would somehow tamper my view of Last of Us and my hype for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. It's not. Obviously, look, at the end of the day, when I go to bed today, right, even though I just woke up, I'm still excited for part 2. I still believe that the story in essence, right, of The Last of Us, right, for all Naughty Dog games, right, my main draw to Naughty Dog's games is indeed the story, right, is indeed those characters, it's the worlds they build, it is impeccable, right? So
Right.
obviously, my main driving force of the hype that I have for Last of Us Part 2 is indeed the story, right? Let's not get that confused, right? Number
Fair
one.
enough.
Number two, right? Now, obviously, me and Sark's pretty big fans of Factions. We know a lot of people in the Last of Us community that are very passionate about Factions as well, right? But we all still enjoy the game no matter what, right? We all still enjoy Last of Us no matter what, right? So I don't want to come off as like disrespectful to the studio. I understand that games is hard as hell to make, right? Like,
Right.
I don't want to come off as an asshole or being disrespectful to the development team out over at Naughty Dog. They are crafts at their jobs. They're crafts at what they make, etc. Right? So I do not mean to, I mean no ill intention or no ill harm or no ill will towards those that are making this game, right? I
Right.
understand that there are, development is hard, and we just got quotes that we haven't even talked about that we will talk about in a future episode of Road to Part 2, even though this is not an episode of Road to Part 2. But that this is their biggest game they've ever made in their lives, right? So
Right.
so I know a lot is going into this game. So I do not mean to disrespect anyone at Naughty Dog. Let me just make that up
Likewise.
front.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure Starks echoes that same notion, right? But
Absolutely, 110%.
but here is why I think factions is so important, right? Because in the original Last of Us, right, most people, I think it's safe to say that like most people played the story and then went to factions, or played the story and just dropped out, right? For me, I played the story, loved it, and then wanted more, right? I loved being in that universe, being in that world, and especially the main point is playing that gameplay, that tactical, very, very, deliberate and very methodical gameplay that Naughty Dog crafted with Last of Us, right? So
Right.
factions was a way to get that drip and get that emotion and be able to replay that without replaying the story, right? You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I loved about factions, was that, man, like it reflected the same way the story did in the intensity of combat, in decision making, in doing the objectives, in also exploring the narrative of the world, like having these settlements and being a part of either the Fireflies or
hunters.
the hunters, and you're going out and you're doing these scout missions, similar to what we saw in the story. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like that's what I loved about factions, but the main thing was that it like gave me an avenue to still experience The Last of Us gameplay without replaying the story. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And and like now what we're about to break down in this episode of Road to Part 2, which you will see next week. I know it's kind of weird, weird schedule, but we're about to talk about all the gameplay features. We're about to talk about how they are implementing all these gameplay features and all these different things in terms of stealth, and the fact that we won't be able to experience that allegedly in Last of Us 2 hypothetical multiplayer is upsetting. Now,
Right.
to top this all off, right, I want to double back and read again who said these quotes. Okay, so it was, oh my god, it was lead designer. Never mind. I was gonna say, like, maybe, she's misinformed, but I feel like the lead game designer would definitely know. So I rest my case. So I mean, like, I mean, I don't know, guys. I don't know. I feel like Naughty Dog will definitely loud and clear hear this cry out, and what they choose to do. I mean, I'm still getting the game day one, obviously. Who knows? Maybe factions comes in a later update. Maybe that's the intention
Like
here.
similar to Red Dead and
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto. Yeah.
Yeah. So like maybe this is the intention. Like maybe they want people to experience the story first, and then they'll bring in most. Like maybe her quotes are like, yeah, this is a single. We're focusing on a single player experience, so we're just making a single player game for this. And
Right.
then, sources of the event, when asked about what sort of form the previously confirmed multiplayer would take, correct, it is a single player game.
Yeah. So essentially, it's slap in the face. People can have their opinions, right? But if they don't end up implementing some form of a multiplayer later, like what Rockstar typically does, then I will lose a lot of trust in Naughty Dog's ability to do both story and multiplayer effectively. And I think that's the main reason as to why perhaps the multiplayer might not be developed or fully developed, or might not actually be developed at all, is because Naughty Dog, based off of their previous track records, with the exception of The Last of Us, despite some of its cheats and glitches and whatnot in the multiplayer side, is their inability to focus all the resources on both multiplayer or single player and multiplayer, and make them both as equally quality filled and with value. Now, I will say this is all subjective, right? People have their opinions regarding The Last of Us's multiplayer and story, but what I'm trying to say is, if Naughty Dog doesn't end up doing multiplayer, it will feel like a slap to the face to a significant community who has been a part of the growth of Naughty Dog Studio, regardless of what anybody says. And sorry, I'm a little emotional here. I'm still, I still can't believe that this actually might be the reality. But hey, we'll see what happens.
I mean, like, oh my god. I mean, I'm hesitant on using the phrase like slap in the face, right? Because like again, I want to respect Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
To the
No,
utmost
like,
fucking
I understand.
degree. Yeah.
Like,
you know what I'm saying?
no, I do respect. Like I say, and that's the thing. Like I want, as we established, like you and I are both very respectful. I just have a different way of kind of expressing that. And by slap in the face, I just simply mean like I feel like perhaps Naughty Dog is I don't know, just not being fair, I guess, in respects to the multiplayer side. I guess would that be a little bit more respectful? Like not being too fair.
Yeah. I mean, it's totally cool. I just don't want other people watching this to get the wrong impression. Yeah, that's it.
No.
But I guess I'll end off with, honestly, like, I know we're still waiting on Naughty Dog to report this, right? But if the lead game designer and Sony both confirmed that The Last of Us Part 2 is a single player experience through and throughout the entire game, is a single player game, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else could be of the contrary. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't. Yeah. So I mean, if this amount changes, then I don't know if I'll take down this video or I'll follow up with something else. I don't know. But man, dude,
I'm definitely gonna have this uploaded on my channel.
Do you know what's so upsetting?
What?
Literally 2 weeks ago, on September 10th, Naughty Dog Jobs, the Twitter account, tweeted out, Naughty Dog is seeking a multiplayer server programmer to join our team. What's going on? How can this happen? But all right, I guess we will call it here. If there's any updates on this whole debacle about Last of Us Part 2 not having multiplayer, we will break it down for you in another episode, or just follow us on Twitter and hear us cry about no factions. But Starks, where can people find you, speaking of Twitter?
Well, you can find me on Twitter. I'm gonna upload this on my channel, so link in the description, as well as YouTube. So you can keep it here as well. So how about you, sir?
You can follow me at the KDIAZ123. Follow me on there on Twitter at THEKDIAZ123. Follow me in there, as well as keep it locked. I know this is also on Sark's channel, but you can follow me at PlayStation Source as well. YouTube.com/PlayStation Source, where we do a weekly Blast Us podcast, Road to Part 2, that we're about to record right after this. So you can definitely check that out. It goes live every Wednesday on the YouTube channel, as well as any major podcast format. So that will be, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Podcasts, all the good stuff. You can follow us down in those avenues of media outlets. I said that so weird. I don't know. But,
Okay.
Thank y'all for watching, and as always,
PlayStation awaits.
the factions awaits. I don't know about now, but
I mean, you know what I mean. I mean greatness, but you know how it is. I'm just emotional right now.
I'm gonna go cry, quite honestly.
Yeah.